All right, it's 2 past the hour. For those of you that this is your first Sentry workshop, welcome. My name is Schaefer. I'll just be kicking things off for us today. As you can see, and is made obvious by the title slide, we're going to be focusing on measuring success using Sentry today, measuring success in your projects, your orgs, your applications. Cool. Okay, let's move on. Let me introduce you to your host today, Neil Manvar. If you come to a lot of these workshops, you're very familiar with Neil. Neil's on the solutions engineering team here at Sentry. He actually leads the team. So let's pop in and take a peek at what Neil's going to be going over today. Looking first at org stats, taking a peek at your project usage and your ingestion. Then we'll hop over and look at project details, thinking about how to solve your project's most critical issues, and custom dashboards, which is what it kind of sounds like. It can allow you to visualize trends over time. And then at the very end, we'll do Q&A, and some of these features are business plan features. So we got a promo code for those of you to use. So you can try it out for a month, give it a test drive and see if you like it. So without further ado, I will pass it over to Neil. Please ask your questions throughout the webinar, and we'll be kind of compiling those in the background and answering those at the end.
Sounds good. And Schaefer, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and just take over. Alrighty. So let's get started. So as engineers, we love new features, we love new toys, and whether it's software, whether it's hardware, I'm excited because today I got a piece of new hardware, which is this mic. So hopefully my voice is coming off a bit clearer, like a podcaster, and I can show off these features clearly. With that being said, what we're going to be concentrating on today is org stats, project details, and dashboards. But I do want to tie this into the Sentry pillars, right? We have errors and exceptions going into Sentry and transactions going in as well as part of performance monitoring sessions as part of releases. All of this will tell you what's broken, what's slow, if adoption is as you expect, and then we can dig down into the context, perform any queries with Discover, and dashboards is going to add on to this, which I'm very excited for. And then we also have the integrations. So today we're going over org stats, which is going to give us a lot of clarity into what our usage is in regards to errors, performance, and attachments. And then we're going to go over project details, which is going to help us understand how our app is doing over time in regards to errors, performance, sessions, and make sense of all of this data, not just in an individualistic level, but in the aggregate, so we can understand how our app is doing, what's wrong, is adoption okay, and not just understand from a release perspective, which we did before, but from the app or service perspective, which is going to be really relevant to figure out what's going on over time. All right, so let's get started. First things first, org stats. So I'm just going to go ahead, go to Sentry over here. It takes us to the issues page by default. And let's go to stats here. So this page, if you've gone to it in the past, was very basic, right? It really didn't have any sort. It didn't have any search. It just told you what was going on in terms of errors, had a static 14-day view, and you really had to go digging around. Now, first things first, you can select any date range. So let's just go ahead with 30. We can view errors, transactions, or attachments. We'll start with errors, but then I'll go ahead and show off the others as well. And here we see exactly what's going on, what was accepted, what was dropped, what was filtered, and highlighting here shows what was ingested, what was dropped, what was accepted, etc. We can do a cumulative as well, so see how we're doing over time. And we have our projects and a first class sort here. So we can go ahead and click any of these columns, see what's going on. And, if we wanted to see our front end stuff, we could easily do something like this as well and understand what's going on, click in and go from there. So real quick, I'm just going to show this for transactions, more or less the same thing, just for a different unit or a different event type. And then attachments is going to be the same as well. So periodic, and you can see there were some attachments used, and here's the transaction side of the house. So that's really it for org stats. As basic as that is, we wanted to give you all the understanding of what was going on in terms of your organization, what's being ingested, if you have any projects that are going off the rails, and if you need more event quota or whatever it is, to figure it out from there. So next feature, and this one I'm particularly excited for, which is project details. So going to Sentry, like I mentioned, typically takes you to issues, but if we now go to projects, and I see all of my projects by default here. Let's go into my front-end React project. Now we have the project details, and I'm just gonna go ahead and select 30 days. And right from here, I can see that, hey, the last 30 days have not been good. You know, I used to be somewhere around 90%. Now I'm at 50%, 49%. That's not good. 8 releases went out, and my app dex is as such. We have quick access into any of the views, so any of the teams that the project is subscribed to, as well as alerts, which will take you into the metric alert or issue alert, and then the releases associated with it as well, and then any of the performance stuff, the trends, transactions, and then user feedback if we want to get to that. But let's go ahead and go over all this data. So over the last 30 days, it looks like things, like I mentioned, have not been good. We dropped by 40%, 8 releases went out, we had 4 more releases, and the crash-free sessions are as such. Things were good, things dropped, not good, things were good, once again, a drop, and then a significant drop, and so forth. So what we see here is the session data for this period. We can toggle that as such and view any of this data as well. And we have the previous period in the background, and then the releases are the dotted lines, and clicking in will actually take you to a release as well. So I'm going to drill down on 2 periods: what happened during this outage, and then what happened during a good period, so I can even optimize on that as well. Underneath that, we have app dex and performance related information as well. So I could just switch it to failure rate, see exactly blatantly what's going wrong there, and then number of errors, sessions, etc. Let's go ahead, go to app dex, and underneath that, what Sentry bread and butter is, the context, the issues, and what we see here are unhandled issues that were part of this time period. We can go to issues directly or open those in Discover, but I'm going to concentrate on this here, and let's go through 2 use cases. So one, there was a significant drop here. Let's investigate that. So here we can clearly see crash-free sessions dropped, and it looks like mostly backend errors, unable to get the tools, a JSON parse, a syntax error as well. That's, you know, regex maybe with something depending that's coming on for the backend. But from here, I can just get a clearer picture as well. Now let's go back 1 step and see what was going on potentially during a good period, right? So I'm actually going to even step out even more. For example, let's go into, for example, right here to here. And we can see there was about an 88% crash-free sessions, and most of them were network resources or network errors that were going wrong. Depending if that's the resource. From here, I can go to issues as well as create alerts as well. But this is a good launching pad to understand exactly how my app is doing, how all the different types of events are coming together, and understand the full picture. So if you want to understand a release, go to releases. If you want to understand what's going on with your projects, and then kind of jump down into issues, releases, or discover, this is really going to be a great launching point and going in from there. And as you can see, drag and dropping it will refresh the data and change the views as such as well. All right, so the meat of today is actually going to be spent on dashboards, and I'm going to create a bunch of custom dashboards here, which I'm really excited for, and hopefully I can click through this as smoothly as possible. All right, so hopefully you all are familiar with Discover, but if not, I'm just going to give a quick recap. With Discover, we can more or less perform any query against any of the data. So here I'm just viewing all of the events. I can drill down into any subset of this. I can then define any of the data that I'm interested in, whether it's, you know, customer type, and how many errors are happening to each of these or events. But what we didn't have is the ability to visualize this all in one place, all in different formats. So Discover allows you to find any of these answers and hit our API, grab any of the data, pivot on this, and figure out what was going on. But what happens if you wanted to see this in a bar format or a map format, or have multiple Discover queries all on the same page and know all this stuff? So that's where dashboards comes in. So I'm going to go ahead and create a bunch of different dashboards. It's going to look like this in the end, but let me go through the whole flow. So if we go into dashboards, we can go ahead, create the dashboard. So I'm just going to say Neo webinar errors. And let's go ahead and start creating some widgets here. So first thing, I'm going to create 3 big numbers just so I can understand the state of things from a high level. So let's start with total errors. And this is just going to be the overall count of errors Very basic here. Next one, we'll do another big number. Let's start with the total unique issues, right? So we can go here, count unique. Let's go ahead and select issue. There we go. One more big number, which is users affected. And you can see how easily I'm doing this here. Look for the name. That one is important. Alrighty. And let's keep going here. So I'm interested here in unhandled and handled errors, right? So let's go ahead. I want to view this in line chart. And I'm going to go ahead and go handled yes, and then handled no. Alrighty. And there we go. Just like that. Add widget. And let's do a map next. Alrighty. So you can see all the different options here. I'm going to choose a map, and I actually just want to know errors on this map, right? So errors by geo. You can see my data set isn't too extensive here, but it looks like there's a compromised experience in the US. And this one is very interesting that I'm going to go do a bar graph, but let's see the number of releases that we have versus the unique issues that are introduced over time. So this is, I put a release out there, how many new errors are coming out, and I would be interested in this as just more or less understanding delta into the system here. So let's go here into a bar chart. There we go. So my query is going to be, give me a second here. I'm just gonna not include any transactions here. All right. And then let's do a couple things here. So count unique, release, there we go. And then account unique of issues. There we go. So now what we can see is over the last 24 hours, I'm going to stop here for a second. There are 3 releases and 19 issues introduced. And then there are 4 releases as well on this day and 19 issues introduced there. Let's keep going here. I'm going to create a couple of tables as well. So edit this dashboard. I'm interested in what my top issues are across all of my projects. So bam, table. Let's just do issue and count. We can add anything as necessary. I'm just going to keep it basic so that we just see the data as widget and the pertinent data is surfaced. And let's add a couple more tables here. The next one, let's do errors by customer type. I know this is taking a little bit, but we're going to have a really nice dashboard after this. And here I have a custom type or a custom tag, customer type, count. And here we go. And we'll do sort by count descending because we want to know. And so I can do that because I can see a little black hit tree there. So there we go. And then next, errors by browser. So I'll compromise a browser experience. And we can just say has browser.name. And let's go ahead and do table once again. Browser name. Here we go. And once again, sort. Here we go. So bam. So now we have a fully functional dashboard. And if I want to investigate a spike, let's say, for example, this, I can just go into this, see exactly what was going on, how many users were affected, unique issues, looks like I forgot to sort this one. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. Sort by sending. What my most pertinent issues are over here. And if I compromise any of my enterprise experiences, such, I can act on it and go from there. So as easy as that, just a few clicks, I have a tile of 9 tiles here in a dashboard, all different types of visualizations from big numbers to line graphs to a map here. I can do bar graphs and tables. And something interesting about tables is this will take me to Discover. I can then jot this down. Let's just go ahead and do this. And now, for example, I'm interested in setting an alert for my enterprise users. So let me just go ahead and gotta select a project. That's easy. And let's just select an event type. What I'm gonna do now is create an alert such that when errors happen to enterprise users, I'm then alerted. And my dashboard helped me easily hook in from dashboard to Discover. And now you're gonna see, for more project, let's just go ahead and select that again. There we go. And now we can go ahead and set a metric alert so that we're proactively alerted about this here in this case. So here, let's say if it goes to 12, I want it to go to critical. Let's say 5 warning, and let's say resolve here. Form actions. So let's go ahead and do a few things. Let's select, do an email to my team. Go ahead and reach out to PagerDuty as well, because this is probably pretty serious, because this is enterprise customers. They're paying me big money. I then want to be paged and have an incident. And lastly, we can also do Slack and any of the such things that we're interested in. Well, so go out to the urgent Slack channel as well. Feedback heavy. There we go. You can go ahead and save this rule. As easy as that. And go ahead and view any of this here. And so what did we just say? Compromised, bam. And this would be the alert when it triggers. We can see everything as well as the related issues. So just a quick shout out to alerts here as well. And then to close the loop as well, if I wanted to create an issue alert, I could easily just go into here, bam, and also do customer type enterprise, right? I'm not going to go all the way through with this here. Then this is also one of our interesting things as well. We can go ahead and create an automatic Jira issue as well. So now, just to kind of tie everything together, right? I started here, I have a new dashboard that I created here. Is this. And from here, I can then jump into Discover, set an alert, and go on. But the big point is I know exactly what's going on, all my different metrics, so I'm not hopping over between issues, performance, Discover, releases, etc. This is a good launching pad in addition to the project details that we structured for y'all as well. And we can dig down in from there. I'm going to go ahead and create one more dashboard because Sentry is not just about errors, right? We have performance, we have transactions, all of that stuff. So let's go ahead and go through that use case as well. So same thing here. Go ahead and create the dashboard. Let's title it. Alrighty. And I'm going to start with kind of the same format because I like doing the big numbers first. So let's see just unique users actually on the system. So bam, here we go. And we can just call this unique users. Go ahead, add that widget. I'm going to do 2 more of these as well. The next one being my page load. And I'm going to do it in a P95 because that's the metric I'm interested in. So what I'm going to do here is figure out the transactions that I care about. So transaction and transact or transaction. Right here. And let's do a P95 of the transaction duration. And I'll get into web vitals in just a bit as well, but here I'm interested in specifically this metric right here and average LCP load right into, because it's not just about how long the end-to-end was, but how long did it take for the user to be able to interact with the page, etc. So let's start with the big number here. And what we're going to do here is measure, give me 1 second. We're going to do an average of the LCP. There we go. Bam. So this is what we got so far. Let's just check it out. And next, let's create some line graphs over web vitals, slow transactions, key transactions, and then we'll do one more map. So 4 more tiles, and then we'll call it a day here. So bam, next one, let's do a line chart. What I'm gonna do is call this web vitals. And let's go ahead and do 3 things. So first, start with P75s. Do those. And then let's do LCP. Do this guy. And then this guy. Bam. There we go. Now we got web vital information. And I'll highlight over that and showcase what that looks like in just a bit. And I have some, I want to know what my slowest transactions are so I can act on it in case they're important transactions. This one's going to be a table. And let's just go here. And what I'm interested in is what is the transaction and what is the P95 for the duration. There we go. And let's go ahead and sort that. There we go. So immediately I can see the tool store endpoint and the get tools front and back end all on one screen. And I have some key transactions that I care about that I'm going to track. You might have seen some of them earlier, but bam, the tool store. And let's do a few others as well. This guy. Let's do one. Get back into transactions that I really want to track here. Just check out. I can label these as necessary. There we go. Add that widget. And then last one, and this one's particularly interesting because I'm going to start with a map. And I want to know about the number of users affected by slow transactions. So what I'm going to do here is create a quick query that if the duration is more than 4 seconds, I consider that a slow query. So I want to know how many unique users are affected by that. And there we go. As easy as that. So I'm all done here. Looks like we got, 4K unique users on the platform over the last 24 hours. Page loads are as such. It's taking about 5.5 seconds to load the experience. And we can highlight over this web vital information or really any query that we make here. We can hop into Discover to view any of these slow transactions. I've listed some key transactions, and I want to know, if there's slow experiences around the globe and act on that accordingly. So that's really honestly what I had for y'all. Just some new features that'll help you understand your usage, your ingestion, what's going on with Sentry, create some dashboards so you can dig in, and then project details so you got a good starting point, can anchor on and understand the health of your service or application at that project level. And then we got org stats so you can understand what's going on from an administrative perspective. So really appreciate y'all's time. I know that was short and sweet, but wanted to just show y'all some of this new stuff and use my new mic, as I mentioned. All right, I'm gonna hand it off to Schaefer and we'll give you that promo code and answer any questions.
Thanks, Neil. That was awesome. All right, we do have a few questions that popped up. You all were a lot more quiet than you typically are, but feel free to continue asking as we go through the questions that have already been asked. Joining us, in addition to Neil, is Jeremy Bork. Jeremy's a product manager at Sentry. So we're going to tag team some of the questions you guys asked. The first being, we have sub projects within a project, and we want to send specific errors to a different Sentry project to let the sub project configure its own alerts and understand its own metrics. As far as I can see, after init, I can't capture exceptions and send them to another DNS. Is this something we can do, or is it part of your roadmap?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd have to definitely dig in, but from what I understand, it sounds like we want to make a runtime decision of where the error should go. And there might be some things in the before send we can do, or there might be some things before the init if we know it's like a certain environment and we want it to go based on that. But it's something that I'd have to dig in with you and the SDK team. So let's figure out if we can hook into anything, whether it's a documented thing or undocumented, and see if we can get that type of behavior configured, as well as verify the project structure as well.
Cool.
So sorry for no straight answer, but we'll figure it out.
No worries. Next question. Is there a query to see the number of errors assigned to someone or left unassigned?
Yeah, Jeremy, you want to take this? Otherwise, I'm happy to take it as well.
Go for it.
Okay, yeah. Currently, issue stuff, so issue assignment and issue states and some of that is not within Discover, and it's something that we're closely tracking. So currently, we're able to query transactions, errors, and all basically those event types. So it's something that's on our roadmap that we want to get to helping you understand what's resolved, what's unresolved, and what's happening over time, and who's assigned to. So definitely something that we're interested in answering with some of the platform that we built today. Just gonna get the data. And
yeah, just to add on to what Neil said, so it's definitely something we're looking at for Discover and dashboards. Although in the for review list today, in the issues page, you can get all that information. So it's surfaced there for you if you want to see what's assigned to you, what's assigned to somebody else, what remains unassigned. Those queries you can do on that page. We're just looking at then bringing those into dashboards and Discover at some point in the future.
Cool. Neil, specific question for you. Are those dashboard widgets you showed documented somewhere for us to copy and use, other than the recording of this video that I'll send out Monday?
That is a good question. I've actually been toying with this idea of like documenting these and getting these configured for our customers in a pretty automated fashion. The short answer is no, but I'm happy to share these, and I'll get you all of that information, and we'll post it along with this webinar. I think that's a super valid question.
Yeah. There is, so those ones aren't, as Neil mentioned. There is documentation on the widget builder in the Sentry docs, of course. And the other thing is, if you, when you get access to custom dashboards, which I think Schaefer mentioned some of these are business features, and custom dashboards is a business feature, but you can use the promo code to try it out. And when you do, you'll see you have a custom dashboard that you can edit. So you can also go in there, and it's not the same widgets as what we configured for this demo, but there are a bunch of examples already in the product on the default dashboard that you can sort of use as inspiration, or clone that dashboard and edit, things like that.
Yep. And actually for mine, I used a lot of inspiration from the default side, then just added a couple extra queries and a couple columns and my own flavor. But happy to share those. We also have a bunch of these created within Sentry as well, so we're looking to kind of publicize this knowledge in blogs and make sure that the appropriate information gets out to the appropriate individuals, whether it's a developer, an engineering manager, or whether you're drilling down on a spike or it's an error in a certain geographic region. We've done it pretty well in terms of showing you the issue, but now we want to like help you hone in on it and understand the whole system of application in this case.
Cool. Yeah, the questions have been piling in since I called everyone quiet. So challenge accepted. I appreciate you all. Next is, can we set up performance budget threshold to some of the performance metrics or indicators?
Yeah. So I believe, so performance, it's going to be twofold, right? There's going to be budget controls that you have on our end in terms of transactions and overages and things like that. And then we want to sample accordingly as well. So the question is, can we set up performance budget or threshold of some performance metrics / indicator? Threshold of performance metrics. Yep, we got the alerts. Just anything that you saw me querying, you can more or less be alerted on. That's what the metric alert system is kind of based off of. So then you know when something's out of bound and go from there.
Sweet. Moving along, is it possible to organize data by per customer? We have an on-premise client server application, and we'd like to see customer data unified and also separately.
Absolutely. So go ahead and you could do a couple things. It's going to be using our tag system. So you could have each customer as potentially an environment or a custom tag, and our system will acknowledge both of those accordingly as well. So for example, any of those top bar filters that you changes the whole experience, and you can drill down in from there and and figure out what's going on. So it's more or less just letting Sentry know that this is my different customer types or deployments.
Yeah, and that'll drive all the unique customer counts and things like that that you saw that are possible in the dashboards and the Discover queries. The other thing to keep in mind is, depending on your needs, you can identify customers uniquely, like by a login address, like a login, and account name and email, or anonymized. So if you want to use anonymized, customer identifiers, that will also work and give you the counts without exposing any information to Sentry.
Mm-hmm.
Next question. Do you have any features in regards to logging specific events, not errors, or plan to release something like this?
Yeah, it might not be extremely obvious, but when you install the SDK, by default, it's attaching onto the exception handler, and like you said, surfacing those errors, but it's also providing you Sentry.capture message. And that you can use to send more or less any content within an event into Sentry, and it'll go through the workflow, it'll be aggregated as such, and that's how you're going to get custom data in as needed. So absolutely. So Sentry.capture message, and I'll point you all to the docs as well.
Cool. Now, the platform Python either does not support release health or it is missing from documentation. Any comments on that?
Yeah, you want to tackle this one, Jeremy? Otherwise, I'm happy to as well.
If you can add color, I'm a little bit confused because I'm pretty sure that we use Python and we use release health.
Yeah, I think it's in progress. It'll be there shortly, if not, but it's part of the spec here, and it's part of the plans. I'm just checking it's in the public documentation, but expect release health on Python.
We'll follow up with you. Whoever asked that question, we'll follow up in the either live or in the Q&A and give you the link to the documentation once we pull it. Moving along, can I have errors grouped by week? What I'm looking for is a bar graph of the total number of errors or unique errors per calendar week over a long period of time, a quarter or even more.
So I think the answer is yes. The longest retention period that's available, depending on your account type. So I think all of the paid accounts offer up to 90 days. So that would give you a quarter. And you should be able to use Discover and or put it on a dashboard to kind of see those groupings per week and track that for a full 90 days.
Yep, just assemble the query. And I think changing the time filters also changes the bar graph values as well in terms of time duration. So it's just a matter of querying and tweaking.
Cool. Pretty general question, just someone's interested in knowing anything we care to share about our roadmap, whether it's next 3 months, next 12 months.
Jeremy, product. I'm happy to take a spin at this as well, but you're the one.
I was going to say,
exciting stuff.
Put the product manager on the hot seat. Sure. Okay. I can't share a ton in this forum, but I will say, let's see, we've got, for performance, we've got an operations breakdown feature that's currently in early access. So if you turn on your early access flag, you will see starting to show up on your transactions a breakdown of, like on the front end, for example, HTTP operations, resource loads, backend API calls, and it sort of sums those up to show you sort of the relative proportion of how much time went into each, which makes it super easy to find, like, where did I have slow HTTP calls, or where did I have larger resource loads that were slowing down my transactions? So you can find outlier examples and dig in to see what's going on. That's one. We also we're working on a tag explorer facet analysis feature for performance as well, where you'll be able to see what's the relationship between tag values you set, whether they're the ones that are automatically set by the SDK or custom tags that you add yourself, and what's the impact on performance. So that can be used to explore all kinds of things, from like how performance relates to a certain customer type, to a certain account, if in the example before where you wanted to identify individual customers, or geographies, device types, all kinds of things. So we're building kind of an enhanced experience there. That's something we're looking forward to. We're coming out shortly. So you saw Neil's demo with the dashboards and the drop-down list. That was kind of the V1. When people had only a few dashboards, the drop-down list is very convenient. Now that we're starting to build more, we're coming out with a management interface for that. So you'll see you'll see an interface that's very similar to Discover, with a bunch of tiles representing your different dashboards. There's dashboard thumbnails, so you can see what's what, and manage them that way in a richer experience. Trying to think if there's anything else coming up. Neil, do you want to add anything to that list?
No, there's going to be some improvements to alerts, making it easier to get those metric alerts set up as well. I think overall you did a pretty good job, Jeremy. A lot of one-click features between issues and transactions to help you get into the relevant slowdown, into the relevant error, and if the error, the relevant commit, for example. A lot of performance improvements, and like you mentioned, discovering dashboards improvements is kind of like the overall.
Actually, you mentioned something there that I'll bring up. So it's not an upcoming release. It's actually a recent release, something that we just shipped. But I'm particularly proud of is the new quick trace and trace view pieces. So if you're using performance today and you have your projects, if you have like a front end and a back end instrumented, they will actually collect transactions in traces in a trace together between the two platforms. And now we have the capability, when you go and look at any transaction that's in a trace, you'll see a thumbnail of the larger trace there. Same thing on the error side. If you're using errors and performance together, you'll get that same sort of thumbnail sketch of like, how did this trace go down? What happened first? Who called the API? If there are errors, it will also show you that. So it'll show you, like, you could be looking at an error on the front end and see right away, oh, there's actually also an error on the backend API call. I wonder if that's related. 9 times out of 10 it is. And it makes it just really easy to navigate around. And hand in hand with that, we've also released a new trace view. So if you want to then just like sort of take a step back and get the 10,000-foot view of everything that happened in the trace, you can do that and see all the transactions, how they laid out, who called who, and all that information is there, and then you can dive in.
Yep. And I think one other area to highlight is mobile as well. You'll be seeing a lot of new features and developments within that vertical as well. I know today we're mostly showing off Python and JavaScript. Yeah, so keep tuned. And Web Vitals is also really important with us. So you can see that we're making that a first-class citizen. We're doing a lot of interesting things with that. So that's a very, very vague answer from me, and some not so vague things from Jeremy.
Nicholas, who asked that question, I think you got your money's worth there. But good question. You got us talking. Next, can we compare performance metrics across projects within our organization, or even globally across Sentry projects? The goal being to understand how far from median values we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So if I'm understanding the question correctly, it's can I query across projects and then compare these values accordingly to further derive how far or how far are we off from baseline, more or less. Exactly. So everything is going into our global events table. You can query this within Discover, also within Performance. So you'll see at the top we have 3 filters, or 3 drop downs: projects, environments, and time. Go ahead and select any of those projects or all of those projects, and that'll reflect the query accordingly.
I'm not 100% sure if the second part of the question is speaking to like benchmarking. If that's the case, currently there are no benchmarking features. There's no sharing of data whatsoever between accounts. So you wouldn't be able to compare outside of your own account. That being said, like particularly on the front end, we normally recommend like there's some standard benchmarks that you can kind of measure against. The Web Vitals that Neil mentioned and showed in the dashboard is a great example of where Google has defined a spec for those and kind of provides recommendations for all of those core Web Vitals. So you can look and see like what should your LCP be, what should your CLS be, these sorts of things for the best experience. So that'll give you kind of the benchmark you're looking for. And then within your own account, you can compare your heart's content.
Yeah, I'm going to share for 1 second. I think there's a super relevant feature here. Okay. So here, what I did is just went to performance, and then I just clicked trends. And here we can see, over time across projects. So here we have reactive class, things regressing and falling out of baseline as well. So in this sense, we want to help you as well. So you'll see new features coming on here. But all I did is go to performance, view trends, and I can see that, this get tools transaction is now out of whack here, and I should start investigating. Jeremy talked about the operation breakdown. So you can see DB is where the majority of the time was spent here, and we can further drill down, right? So then if we go ahead and pull this up, I can then go into the parent event, so now front end, right? And then go into any of the related errors if there were there, going back one step, or the whole trace view, breaking it down from front to end. This is a very basic one here. So that's just like a really quick listen of that. So that helps connect the dots here.
Cool. The most upvoted question was, do you have a setup for distributed architecture, in parentheses, micro front ends?
Yeah. So that is an interesting one. When it comes to having Sentry in all of these places, right? If these are separate services, you want different projects, right? And you want them uploading their source maps accordingly and whatnot. So this is a matter of just configuring projects as well as figuring out, who needs to be alerted and what kind of scoping this all in, and then getting Sentry wired in as necessary and wrapping any of these micro the surface errors, for example. So don't have a one-line answer for you here, but it's something that we can work with you to figure that out and manage it.
Cool. Moving along. Hi, thanks for the exciting and impressive presentation. I have two questions. One, any solution to monitor memory leaks through Sentry? So I'll stop there and we can answer that one before moving on to the next.
Yeah, memory leaks are very interesting. So it depends on platform, but by default, Sentry is going to attach to the global error handler for the framework, or just say at the topmost level, like window.onError for JavaScript. And at the same time, we don't want to be invasive as well and instrument accordingly. So memory leaks are just one of those things that we don't always know about, that just happen, and it's not something that we can always hook into. So typically no, but if you have the ability to detect a memory leak and then send a message to Sentry, you can go for it from within there as well. But it depends on how the memory leak happens and what the kind of flow is here, and if anything is telling it to go to Sentry. So some of these things Sentry can hook onto, can't. Crashes is another one of them, right? It's a native crash, like a mobile app, for example, that is at the operating system level. So we'll flush the crash on the next relaunch on the internet. So more or less, we'll always do a best stitch effort to try to surface anything applicable to the developer without being invasive.
And then the second part of that question, any special config needed for React SSR with source maps?
Yep, server-side rendering. As far as I know, I don't think so. Just make sure you have the source mapping URL. You're generating the source maps. Number two, you're uploading them. And then number three, all the paths are matching. Let's say you're using the Webpack plugin, or if you're not using Sentry CLI to upload them, just make sure the stack trace path and then the upload source map path match, so that we can go ahead and source map it or unminify it for you and aggregate it accordingly. So nothing special in regards to server-side source maps. Just make sure things match up and they're there, and we'll do the expected thing.
Cool. Someone's on the self-hosted community edition, and they said they don't see the performance menu on the left. Will that only display once they put in the code to track it, or is it something that's only available on Sentry hosted?
Yeah. So my hunch is that you might be on an older version of Sentry that only has errors. So if we upgrade to the latest, you should see basically all the things I see and all the features that I'm able to exercise.
Yeah, my understanding is that the community self-hosted is about 3 months behind feature-wise. So you should definitely see performance. There may be a couple of the newest things. Dashboards, for example, may not be there quite yet. But if you stay updated, all of the features that you see will come to the community self-hosted version as well. And performance should definitely be there.
And just for some additional technical background here, we do most of our feature development on the open source repository. So you can see most of the business logic for all of these features is on there, and we want to make sure we get to every developer, right? Whether it's through the community or it's through SaaS or whatever it is. We want to let you know about your errors, your slowdowns, and make you do something about them. So we don't typically feature gate or anything like that.
Is there functionality provided or planned within Sentry to define SLOs, SLIs, error budgets, and hook those into the dashboard? I didn't find anything related to this when searching in the docs.
Yes, that is the plan. So that's kind of where we're going with all of this alerting and performance and kind of baselining and trends is now kind of tying this all together in terms of that bigger story and hitting on that SLO, that SLI, so that you can define when things are out of bounds. But at the moment, you can define these things as metric alerts, and we actually do that internally very heavy and leverage that. But we're looking for more uh, functionality all in this regards to help you understand what's going on, and dashboards going to be a big part of that. So partially yes, we'll hope to get to a more full yes shortly.
Yeah, that's definitely the direction we're moving in, and if you want to reach out afterwards, I'd love to sort of hear your feedback and requirements. It's something that we're starting to do internally. My team is tracking their SLOs on the dashboard, and we've run into a couple of cases where like we couldn't do what we wanted. So that's actually kind of pushing us forward in terms of we're adding some features to to solve our own use case, but I also want to make sure that we've covered yours. So I'd love to hear more.
Mm-hmm.
Completely unrelated to this talk, which in parentheses they noted was interesting to them. Thank you.
Thank you.
But if I manually capture an exception and then throw it again to trigger some side effect in the parent, and it is subsequently unhandled, would that exception then get recorded twice?
Yeah, this is an interesting thing. So one, if this is front end, I think we could leverage some error boundaries or some other stuff or reactors, kind of that type of space or framework. I want to kind of understand the rethrowing, but to answer your question directly, uh, our SDK has some detection of like duplicate errors. So typically that I believe is turned on for all, turned on by default. So if we see the same error, like if someone's jamming the same button, it's the same error happening, we'll only send the first one and kind of go from there. So more or less, if it's not automatically configured in the SDK that way, we should then configure the SDK to be like, hey, if this is coming as such from a parent from a rethrown error, then let's not send this, and we can massage that type of behavior. Okay.
Cool. Issues has levels which have the following values: critical, error, fatal, warning, etc. Is there a reason to have just these values, or can we extend it to what we use internally for critically, like PO, P1, etc.?
Yeah. Short answer is yes. You can overwrite the level to whatever you want. These are just the defaults that are coming from the frameworks into the SDK. I would actually recommend you use a different tag because level is just another tag in our system, and I would keep that around in case it might be useful for to someone. So then you can have criticality tag with the P0, P1, and it would get the same type of functionality and love that level would as well from any of the views.
We have one concern. Since DNS is public, is there a way to tackle malicious users using RDNS to send logs filled with PII data and thereby causing us issues?
Yeah. Just correction because DNS, but it's I think the question was DSN, the data source name, which is the key for Sentry. And so just to repeat, since the DSN is public, typically like in a web app, is there, or a browser app, is there a way to tackle malicious users using our DSN to send random stuff up and consuming our quota and causing and shooting our alerts? Long story short, if you go to, I believe, project settings and security and privacy, you can set an allowed domains. So here, if I'm toolstore.com, I would just have the allowed domain to toolstore.com. And only things from that domain can send it. So no one can write, a script and just start sending random stuff to Sentry. It'll then be dropped, and you'll tell the system only to accept this.
Cool. Is there any plan on supporting H2 on Sentry.io server?
H2, I'm not too in the know, or at least I'm not too clear at the moment.
I might need more characters.
Yeah, but happy to tackle that.
Yeah, if the person who asked that question
is
wants to add more color there, feel free to go and add more there, and we can try to get to it before we're done for the day. Let's see here.
You were right, Schaefer. As soon as you said it, it just started.
I know. The floodgates opened. Is there a plan in place to add systems monitoring to replace Prometheus with Sentry?
Yeah, to be honest, no. We're very much concentrated at the application layer and the developer layer and the code level. So the question we want to understand is me as an application developer that uh, puts application out there into infrastructure that may or may not have context onto how is it behaving out there in the wild, right? How is it behaving on the user's browser? How is it behaving on the mobile device? How is it behaving when it talks to the backend system? And as a front end developer or as a full stack developer, I can then get that clarity of, hey, it was slow on the front end because of, I did too many synchronous calls and I'm hitting the same API over again, and that API is also really slow because it's doing an aggressive database query. So it seems like I can optimize on all of this and there was an error in part of this flow as well. Is kind of what we're after, and then kind of automating any of that data into a consumable way that developers can act on in a workflow that works for them. So you can see like on errors and commits, like that's a big part of us, like being close to that code and getting the developer the answer to, hey, this is what might point you in the right direction, how you're going to get, back to being rackable.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would just, I'd expand on that a little bit also to say that yes, and the way that we kind of think about the problems that we're trying to solve at Sentry is very very oriented on code and developers. So, one of the questions that we would ask ourselves before looking at a feature set like that is this something that's relevant to all developers? Is it something that I can action in the code? And so, before we start looking at metrics that would tell you you need to scale up your servers, you need to add memory, those sorts of things, like those more operational characteristics is something we may do someday. But right now, for the immediate future, we're definitely focused more on like developers and code type problems. So anything in that avenue, we're definitely thinking about. Operational stuff, maybe someday.
Following up on the previous question, is there any plan on supporting HTTP2 on Sentry.io server? Someone else commented that might be what the original question asker was meaning to ask. Does that make more sense? Maybe not.
You're muted, Neil.
That question now makes a lot of sense, but I do not have the answer in hand at the moment. So I'll follow up on that.
Cool. And we'll wrap things up with one more, and then I'll share the promo code for you all. From Jay, for an app that uses both React Native JS and native Java Android code as part of the same code base, are both the SDKs designed to work well together, or can one run into edge cases? We currently only use it for JS errors.
Good question. So just to recap, sounds like a React Native app. There's a lot of Android stuff going on as well. Can we use both the Android SDK and the React Native SDK? Good news is you should be using the React Native SDK, which auto instruments the Android SDK, and all of the scope and all of this stuff is kind of talking to each other and in sync. So this is some of the improvements that we made in mobile and specifically in React Native over the last year. So use the React Native SDK. It should then basically put in the Android SDK and kind of the downstream stuff. And the React Native SDK and all our SDKs are interesting because it's like a superset. So React Native goes into, it brings in Android and iOS and obviously JavaScript. And then if we go even lower, there's even the native layer for crashes and things like that. So a lot of, developers like that abstraction and reusability and, hierarchy stuff when it works in our favor.
Cool. That about wraps it up. I'm going to share screen again just to give you guys this code. Again, this is for one free month of Sentry's business plan. If you go into your settings and then onto your subscription page, there'll be a place where it says redeem promo code. It will just apply a credit. So in order to access the business plan, you will need to upgrade for a month. There's the ability to trial if you haven't trialed already. So you can get 14 days and in theory, apply this code and get an extra 30. So the code is measure. Again, it will apply credit to your account. So feel free to apply that. It's live right now. If you have any trouble redeeming it, you can reach out to me directly. Just follow up with webinars at sentry.io if you have any questions. But thanks for a lot of engagement today. I really appreciate it from everyone. We'll see you again next month. Still working out exactly what our topic and theme are going to be, but it will certainly be interesting. If we didn't get to your questions, we'll try to follow up with answers And yeah, have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll see you again.